Imagine a world where the person you love most, the one you've built your future with, constructs an elaborate, horrifying lie. A deception so profound it shatters not just trust, but reality itself. This isn't a dark fiction, it's a chilling reality for countless individuals who have fallen victim to the ultimate betrayal. Our story begins in a quiet suburb of Portland, Oregon, in early 2021, with David and Emily Thorne. Their life together, for all intents and purposes, was picture perfect. A comfortable home, shared dreams, and the kind of deep affection that seemed unshakable. Emily, a bright and ambitious marketing manager, had recently landed a prestigious position at a major tech firm downtown. David, a dedicated architect, celebrated her success, proud of her drive and intelligence. The future, they believed, was limitless. But as the weeks turned into months, a subtle shift began to occur. Emily started working longer hours, becoming increasingly distant and stressed. David attributed it to the demands of her new, high-pressure role, offering unwavering support and understanding. Then, in late October 2021, the world as David knew it imploded. Emily called him from her office, her voice trembling, delivering news that would send a cold dread through anyone's heart: a diagnosis. Cancer. Specifically, an aggressive form of lymphoma. David was devastated. His immediate reaction wasn't doubt, but an overwhelming surge of love and protectiveness. He vowed to stand by her, to fight alongside her, no matter what it took. Their perfect life had been shattered, replaced by a terrifying new reality. Emily began detailing a demanding treatment plan, chemotherapy cycles, frequent hospital visits, and even consultations with specialists out of state. David cleared his schedule, rearranged his work, and became her full-time caregiver and emotional anchor. The financial strain quickly mounted. Treatments, travel, and Emily's inability to work soon depleted their savings. David took on extra architectural projects, working tirelessly to cover the escalating costs, all for the woman he adored. Yet, amidst the chaos and despair, small inconsistencies began to surface. Emily would often forget the names of her doctors, or change details about her treatment regimen. She insisted on handling all medical paperwork herself, citing privacy concerns. David, consumed by worry and exhaustion, tried to dismiss these anomalies as stress-induced forgetfulness. He blamed himself for even noticing, convinced it was his own anxiety playing tricks. How could he possibly doubt her during such a horrific time? Emily's story grew more elaborate, her symptoms more severe. She claimed she was undergoing experimental treatments at a private clinic, requiring secretive trips. David's concerns, though suppressed, continued to nag at him, a tiny, persistent whisper in the back of his mind. Then, one crisp morning in April 2022, David found an untraceable receipt tucked deep in Emily's purse. It was for a luxurious spa treatment, dated for a day she claimed to be undergoing an intense chemotherapy session. The whisper became a scream. That spa receipt was the first tangible crack in Emily's meticulously crafted facade. David's gut instinct, long suppressed by loyalty and love, ignited a desperate search for the truth. He began to subtly re-examine every detail of their last 6 months. He started with their finances. Emily had insisted on managing all the medical expenses, but a deeper dive into their joint account revealed suspicious withdrawals, large cash sums and payments to luxury boutiques, not medical facilities. His heart sank. Emily's behavior grew increasingly erratic. She became fiercely defensive when questioned, lashing out at David for doubting her during her fight for life. This gaslighting tactic only further confused and isolated David, but it also reinforced his growing suspicion. David cautiously contacted the hospitals Emily claimed to be attending. With a heavy heart, he discovered there were no records of Emily Thorne, nor any active cancer patients matching her description. Not a single trace. The pit in his stomach grew deeper. The financial burden had become unbearable. David had taken out a second mortgage, borrowed from family, all to sustain Emily's fake treatments. He was drowning in debt, his architectural practice suffering, while Emily seemingly suffered alone at home or at appointments. The emotional toll was immense. David felt like he was losing his mind, caught between the love he felt for Emily and the horrifying possibility of her deception. He was isolated, unable to confide in friends or family without implicating Emily, or worse, sounding insane. A crucial piece of evidence emerged from Emily's work calendar, left open on her laptop. An entry, bolded and coded, simply read, "RS, lunch, the Pearl." RS was Richard Sterling, her boss, a charismatic but notoriously flirtatious man. Emily had always claimed her secret appointments were with obscure oncologists. But the Pearl was an upscale restaurant known more for its romantic ambience than its medical consultations. A new, terrifying scenario began to form in David's mind. Armed with this information, David made a gut-wrenching decision. The next day Emily announced she had another intensive treatment session. David quietly followed her. He watched from a distance as she drove not to a clinic, but directly to the Pearl. What David witnessed next confirmed his deepest, darkest fears. Emily, vibrant and healthy, walked into the restaurant, not alone, but arm in arm with Richard Sterling. They laughed, intimately, their body language unmistakable. There was no cancer. The crushing realization hit him like a physical blow. The cancer was a monstrous lie, an elaborate shield designed to cover her affair. Every tear he'd shed, every sacrifice he'd made, every ounce of sympathy he'd given, was for a fantasy. David sat there, paralyzed by a betrayal so profound it threatened to consume him. The love he felt was now twisted into an agonizing knot of anger, disbelief, and a searing pain. He knew, with absolute certainty, that their life together was over. He drove home, preparing for the most painful confrontation of his life. Returning home, David found Emily casually watching television, a picture of health and relaxation. The stark contrast to the suffering she'd pretended for months, and the suffering she'd inflicted upon him, was infuriating. The confrontation was inevitable, and it was brutal. David laid out his evidence, the spa receipt, the bank statements, the calendar entry, and finally, what he saw at the Pearl. Emily's initial reaction was denial, a desperate attempt to gaslight him, accusing him of paranoia and cruelty in her dying days. But David held firm, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. He recounted every lie, every manipulated detail. Finally, faced with irrefutable proof, Emily's carefully constructed world crumbled. She confessed, her tears no longer feigned, but of self-pity. The truth was sickening. Emily had begun an affair with Richard Sterling months prior. The fake cancer diagnosis was her desperate, grotesque attempt to explain her absences, justify her emotional distance, and manipulate David into providing sympathy and financial support. The fallout was swift and severe. David ended their relationship immediately, initiating divorce proceedings. He made sure Emily's deceit was known to her employer, resulting in her immediate termination from the tech firm. Her professional reputation was in tatters. The emotional scars on David ran deep. Betrayal of this magnitude, known as malignant narcissism in some psychological circles, leaves victims with profound trust issues, anxiety, and often, symptoms akin to PTSD. He needed therapy to navigate the trauma. Cases of faked illness for personal gain, while shocking, are not uncommon. Studies suggest that a small but significant percentage of individuals, often driven by personality disorders like Munchausen syndrome or pathological narcissism, resort to such extreme deception. Richard Sterling's involvement was also investigated. While he claimed ignorance of the fake cancer, believing Emily's stories, his professional conduct was deemed unethical. He was demoted, his own career stained by the affair and the subsequent scandal. David faced the daunting task of rebuilding his life, financially and emotionally. The debt accrued during Emily's treatment was immense, but the weight of the emotional betrayal was far heavier. He vowed to never again let his trust be so completely exploited. The story of David and Emily is a stark reminder of the devastating power of deception within intimate relationships. It underscores the critical importance of vigilance, even when love clouds our judgment, and the profound cost when trust is weaponized. For David, healing was a long, arduous journey. He eventually recovered financially, and slowly, painstakingly, began to rebuild his capacity for trust. But the experience forever changed him, a permanent scar from a lie that almost consumed his life. This chilling narrative serves as a cautionary tale. It prompts us to question, how well do we truly know the people we love? And at what point does our empathy become a vulnerability, paving the way for the most profound and calculated betrayals? The search for truth, no matter how painful, is always essential.